Her smile fades slowly, like moonlight being pulled behind clouds. You lean closer to the basin as if proximity might bring clarity. It doesn't. Her reflection remains where it is, smiling, silent, knowing. But your own face refuses to join. Hers in the water. Instead, the surface begins to ripple, not from wind, from breath, your breath. As you exhale, the water inhales. The ripples pull inward toward the center, revealing what lies beneath, not a reflection, a memory. You see the queen, Nimira, standing beneath a canopy of date palms. She is robed in pale cloth, surrounded by children. They aren't her servants or subjects. They're hers, or perhaps orphans she claimed when others did not. Her hands rest on their heads. One child clutches the hem of her robe like it's a lifeline, and then a horn sounds, low, guttural, like a call from the desert itself. She looks toward the sound, her face hardening. The children vanish from the vision, replaced by soldiers, torches and shouting, and one name is spoken, repeated, screamed, Nimira. The scene vanishes. You stumble back from the pool, your breath catching. The air around you has changed, heavier, warmer, as if something is moving just beyond the stone walls, something ancient, a presence that remembers you even if you haven't finished remembering it. Behind you now is another door. You don't remember hearing it open. It's smaller than the last, hunched, humble, like it doesn't want to be noticed. But you notice. You enter. This chamber is round and dry, lined with shallow alcoves filled with broken items, cracked amphorae, torn prayer cloths, half-burned candles, and fragments of wall mosaics with eyes gouged out. Every object looks as though it was destroyed in a hurry, not with rage but with purpose, erasure. But someone missed something. In one alcove, beneath a layer of soot, a single tile remains unbroken. You wipe it clean. It shows Nimira kneeling, beside a fire holding something in her hand, a small bottle. You've seen one just like it, in your satchel. The bottle meant to be opened only if you forget why you came. You pull yours out. It pulses faintly in your palm. You sit cross-legged. Tile before you, the bottle resting in your hand like a living thing. And against every piece of logic you own, you unseal it. A whisper escapes, warm, damp, like the sigh of someone relieved they no longer have to pretend. And then, the scent. It's he. Hits you hard. Cinnamon, ash, milk warmed over a fire, sandalwood, a breath not from your lungs but from hers. The queen's. You hear her voice. Not from outside but inside your skull. They wanted to forget. I wanted to forgive. They chose silence. I chose sleep. Your eyes close, not because you're tired, because you're being drawn downward into that whisper, into that scent, into the place where her memory sleeps, waiting. And there in the dark you see it, a hall, endless, each wall covered in hanging curtains of woven silver thread. Each curtain trembles faintly with every step you take. Behind the first you see her first decree, an order to build wells across the desert, even in lands that did not belong to her. Behind the second, a secret letter, warning another kingdom of a coming war, one that her advisors swore didn't concern them. Behind the third, a cradle, rocked by invisible hands. She whispers to it. You hear the name, just once, Azael. You know without knowing that this child was taken from her. You reach the end of the hall, one final curtain. It glows red. When you touch it, your hand burns, but not from fire, from truth. Behind it, Nimira, standing before her council, alone, holding a single scroll, her voice firm. I will carry the curse, so my people do not. You watch her seal the scroll. You see the others back away. No one stops her. They let her take the burden. Then she looks up, straight at you. Her voice fills your skull again. That's when they stopped writing my name. You wake with a jolt, back in the small chamber. The bottle now empty in your hand. The basin's water has returned, calm as glass. But your shadow is different. It's wearing her crown. You don't touch it. You just whisper, I remember. And, from somewhere beyond the walls, faint as wind across stone. Then you may go further. A new path appears behind the altar. You rise, crownless, but not voiceless, and you step into the next memory. The passage tightens around you like a throat swallowing a secret. The walls curve inward, and for a moment you have to turn sideways to squeeze through. Your shoulder brushes stone that feels unnervingly warm, like it remembers every pilgrim who passed this way before you. You breathe through your nose, slowly, quietly. The scent here is different. Not dust, not death. Rain. Impossible, you think, but unmistakable. Wet stone, cracked earth, the promise of green. You follow it. The tunnel opens into a chamber so quiet your heartbeat sounds like her drumbeat. Your footsteps echo once and vanish like they were never made. The room is spherical, like the inside of a pearl, and the ceiling is an uninterrupted dome of stone streaked with silver veins. It glows faintly, not with light, but with memory. In the center is an altar, a simple stone table. Upon it, 5 objects, arranged like ritual or invitation: a feather, a cup, a folded scrap of linen, a single earring, and a scroll sealed with red wax. None of these things belong to you, but somehow each one feels familiar. You reach for the scroll first because of course you do. The wax breaks with a gentle pop, and the parchment unrolls like it's been waiting. There is no greeting, just a list. The one who forgot her name. The one who stole her voice. The one who locked her dream. The one who burned her sky. The one who stayed behind. You read it twice. The list doesn't say accused. It doesn't say condemned. Here it simply states, and that's somehow worse. You glance at the altar again. 5 objects, 5 lines, 5 people. You look around. You are still alone, but now it feels like you've stepped into a room that remembers being a courtroom. You step back from the scroll. Instead, you pick up the feather, light, white, clean. You press it to your palm and see a flash, so fast it nearly passes unnoticed. A girl standing on the palace wall, holding this feather, and crying. The image fades. You set it down. Next, the cup. Clay, simple, unglazed. You lift it empty, but the moment you tip it, a single drop of liquid lands on your thumb. You lick it. Don't ask why, you just do. Sweet, bitter, heavy. And for a heartbeat, you're sitting at a banquet beside the queen. She's silent. Everyone else is laughing. But her eyes are locked on someone just out of frame, someone she doesn't trust. The linen. A baby's wrap, still faintly scented with lavender and dust. When you touch it, a lullaby hums in your ears, so soft it breaks you a little. The kind of song sung when there's no one left to sing to. You don't even remember setting it back down. The earring is sharp, gold, tiny, shaped like a crescent moon with 3 dangling beads. The moment your fingers graze it, you see her. Running. Again. The queen. Younger this time. Dressed in black. The earring slips from her ear and bounces once against a marble floor before vanishing into shadow. She never looks back. And finally, you return to the scroll. You notice something. Now you didn't before. Your shadow, cast softly against the floor, has changed. You're holding nothing. But your shadow cradles the scroll. You blink. Gone. And yet, not. A door opens behind you, silently. No wind, no creak, just invitation. You turn and pass through. On the other side, the walls change. They shimmer, now made of hammered copper or bronze, reflecting your face in hundreds of distortions. Some old, some young, some not you at all. This passage is longer than the others. At its end waits another door. This one is made of wood, real wood, untouched by decay. A rare thing in a place that worships stone. Carved into it is an image of the queen again. But this time she's neither standing nor crowned. She's kneeling, one hand pressed to the ground, the other extended toward the viewer, toward you, in. The space between her outstretched hand and the edge of the carving, someone has scratched a message, a newer edition. Desperate. She remembered us all. We forgot her. You press your hand to hers. The wood sighs and opens. Inside, the smallest. Room so far a circle, bare except for a pool the size of a basin. Its water is still, but the surface flickers like a candle caught between waking and dream. You step forward, and in the reflection, you see her face. Clear. Finally. Queen Nimira. No veil, no blur. She looks at you, blinks, tilts her head, and then she smiles, not out of joy, out of recognition. You smile back, because for the first time you remember her too. The lotus is still damp in your hand, but it doesn't drip. It holds its moisture like a secret, one that's been folded neatly and passed from palm to palm across centuries. The petals are impossibly intact. No browning, no bruising. Like it was picked only moments ago. You tuck it carefully into your satchel, next to the pendant, the parchment, and the other strange relics you're definitely not returning to a museum. The corridor beyond the lake curves gently to the right, the floor now covered in a fine dust that muffles your footsteps. It smells faintly of spice and something burned. At the bend you find what remains of a caravan. 3 wagons, collapsed, cracked. Their wooden frames bowed inward like they're still bearing the weight of a sun that hasn't touched them in 1,000 years. Wheels shattered, cloth covers faded to a dull ivory. The first wagon contains nothing but bones, human, arranged deliberately, too deliberately. One hand is raised, as if mid-gesture. The other clutches a small copper bell. You don't ring it. You want to, but you don't. Progress. The second wagon is filled with amphorae. Sealed, unbroken. You pop one open. Wine. Or something pretending to be wine. The color is rich, deep purple with an iridescent sheen. It smells not unpleasant, like fermented. Dates mixed with desert honey and regret. A scroll rests atop the largest jar, wrapped in faded silk. You open it slowly. It's a contract written in 2 languages, one ancient, one more recent. It begins simply. Let it be known that Queen Nimira has granted safe passage. You stop. That name again. Nimira. The one carved, beneath the bowls. The one whispered by the faceless man. So she was real. Not just a title, not just a myth wrapped in gold leaf. She was Nimira. She signed treaties. She granted safe passage. And clearly, something went very, very wrong. You read on. The contract lists items traded. Spices, textiles, books. One entry stands out, 1 amphora containing breath, unopened, to be delivered unspilled. You glance at the wine. It pulses, just once. Nope. You wrap the scroll back up, return it gently to its place, and step toward the final wagon. It's empty. Almost. At the center lies a circle of salt, unbroken. In the middle of that circle is a small sealed jar, clay with tiny holes punched into the lid. You crouch. Etched along its rim are words in that same hybrid script. Do not open unless you forget why you came. You stare at the jar for a long moment. You do not open it, but you do pick it up. It's lighter than it should be. And it hums, not loudly, but just enough that you wonder if it's reacting to the flute in your satchel, or to you. As you rise, a breeze cuts through the corridor. The salt scatters, the hum stops, and then you hear footsteps, not behind you this time. Ahead, you follow. They lead you to a door you hadn't seen before. Not because it was hidden, but because the light in this place shifts like memory, showing you what it wants you to see, and only when you're ready to handle it. The door is carved from black stone, etched with constellations. One of them is familiar, the same you saw in the mirror back in the pedestal room. The red moon low in the sky, the stars clustered around it like watchful eyes. A single word is chiseled above the frame. Kifet. You don't know what it means. Not yet, but as you press your hand to the door, the word whispers itself into your thoughts. What feeds in darkness? Charming. The door creaks open. Inside is a long hall. No decorations, no columns, just walls of smooth red stone and torches that flicker without flames. The floor is made of packed earth, soft, cool, slightly damp, and lined along the center in 2 perfect rows are sleeping mats, dozens of them. Each one has a folded blanket at the foot, a pillow neatly placed, and beside each, what looks like a small clay bottle. You step between the rows, trying not to disturb the peace that feels curated, sacred, like a museum of sleep. At the far end of the hall, a figure stands, small, hunched, draped in layers of translucent cloth that move independently, like underwater fabric. You don't speak, but they do. They came to dream for her. The voice is ancient, neither male nor female, just weathered. You step closer. The figure doesn't move, but you can feel their attention shift toward you, like a fog reshaping to make space. They were the dreaming pilgrims. They took her grief into sleep, wore it behind their eyes, whispered it into corners. You glance at the mats, all empty. They never woke up. The figure doesn't say it. You just know it. There's a silence after that, thick enough to carry, and then the figure leans forward slightly. You will dream for her too, but not yet. They raise one hand, pointing to a narrow passage behind them, and carved into the lintel above that passage, barely visible in the red stone. Only those who carry breath may enter. You reach into your satchel. The flute, the pendant, the jar, the lotus, all of it. Breath. So you nod and step into the dark. The passage narrows again, as if the Oasis has decided you've seen too much too fast. The air grows drier, and for the first time, you notice the taste of salt on your tongue, like the ghost of tears that never got cried. You move slower now, not out of fear, but because everything around you feels like it's watching. The stone walls aren't blank anymore. They're alive with carvings, lines etched deep into the rock like they were written with fury and fire. The images are rough, but powerful. A woman standing beneath a crescent moon, a great serpent winding through dunes, a crowd kneeling in adoration, or maybe in fear. And always, always, the queen, arms outstretched, eyes hidden, breath rising like smoke. At the end of the corridor, the light shifts again, not brighter, stranger. A soft shimmer dances across the walls like sunlight refracting through water. But you're underground. There's no water here, or is there? You turn a final corner and stop cold. Before you is a small lake. Yes, a lake. Underground, nestled in the heart of ancient stone. The water is still and dark, smooth as obsidian. The ceiling above is domed, covered in tiny embedded crystals that reflect the faint light like distant stars. And in the center of the lake stands a platform of white stone, just wide enough for one person. Resting on that platform is a vessel, shallow, elegant, carved from jade. You approach the lake's edge cautiously, half expecting the water to speak or grow teeth. It does neither. It simply waits. You search the walls for a path or a bridge, but there is none, just water, deep and silent. Then you see it, a ripple, just one. Something moves beneath the surface, something big, and yet you step forward, because curiosity is stronger than caution, especially here. The water is cold when you enter, not biting, but cold enough to make you gasp. It comes up to your knees, then your waist. Still no floor beneath your feet. You're floating now, drifting. Something brushes your ankle. You do not scream. Proud of you. As you reach the center, the water parts, and the platform rises slightly, as if welcoming you. You climb onto it, soaked and breathless. The jade bowl is warm to the touch. That's the first surprise. The second is what's inside. Not water, not dust, light. Swirling, golden, weightless, like a living memory suspended in a dream. And when you look into it, you fall in. Again, not physically, emotionally, viscerally. You're there, with her, the queen, but younger. Her hair is shorter, her face unmarked by time or sorrow. She sits beside the very lake you just crossed, barefoot, laughing with someone you can't quite see. The sound of her laughter is strange. Not joyful exactly, not forced, just rare. Then the sky shifts. Above her, the stars brighten. A voice calls out, deep, commanding. She stands. The laughter vanishes. The unseen companion disappears, and she whispers, as if she knows you're watching from the future. It always comes back to this lake. The vision fades. You're back on the platform, and the bowl is empty. The light is gone, so is the warmth. The room grows colder. The crystals above dim one by one like eyelids closing. You wade back to shore, heart heavy, clothes dripping, the memory of her laughter ringing in your chest like a bell no one else hears, and on. The shore, someone is waiting, a boy no older than 10. Dressed in simple linen robes, barefoot. His eyes are too old for his face, he doesn't speak. He just raises one arm and points, not at you, but at the wall behind him. There, freshly etched into the stone, is an inscription. The lake remembers what the land forgets. You look back at the boy, but he's already gone, and where he stood a single lotus flower rests on the stone, still wet, still blooming. You take it. You don't know why, but your hands tremble as you cradle it, because something in you already understands. This isn't just a story about memory. It's about what happens when memory survives longer than the people who made it, and tonight you're carrying someone else's breath. You don't turn around. Let's be clear, you want to, obviously. That's what people do in horror movies right before the audience collectively screams, "Nope." But instinct tells you this moment is delicate, fragile, like turning around. Might shatter it, or activate it. So instead you keep walking. The corridor ahead is narrower now, lined with fractured tiles underfoot. The walls no longer display faded murals or carved names. Instead, they're smooth and eerily blank, as if this part of the Oasis has forgotten how to remember. Or maybe it's being rewritten in real time. After a dozen careful steps, the sound of footsteps behind you stops. You pause. The silence that follows isn't peaceful. It's expectant, like the air itself is holding its breath. Then, from behind, barely audible like a memory mumbling in its sleep, a whisper. You left her. You spin. Nothing. No one. Not even your own footprints. Great. You're being gaslit. By sand, you exhale slowly and keep going. The path opens into a rectangular chamber filled with rows of stone shelves. At first you think it's a library, but there are no scrolls, no books, just bowls. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Each, one unique, some simple, some ornate, some cracked, some sealed. One even has tiny golden scorpions etched into the rim, which feels like a red flag you're going to ignore for now. As you step inside, the air gets cooler, heavier. A hush falls over your thoughts, like they're being muffled by the atmosphere itself. You pass one bowl that hums quietly when you walk by. Another has a lid, but the moment you think about touching it, it rattles once. That's enough for you to keep walking. You're not here to start a cursed soup party. Toward the back of the room is a single bowl, larger than the others. Black clay, wide and shallow, filled to the brim with water so still it looks solid. You peer in, your reflection stares back. Except, your eyes are the queen's. You blink, so does she. You tilt your head, so does she. But it's not mimicry, it's knowing. This isn't a mirror, it's a meeting. And then she speaks. Without moving her lips, her voice slips into your mind like a memory you didn't live. The bowls were meant to hold breath. Not water, not wine, breath. You frown. What does that mean? No response, of course not. You reach out, slowly, carefully. Your fingers touch the surface and the water disappears. Not drains, not spills. It just vanishes. In its place, a fine dust, pale, almost grey-blue. You scoop some up. It clings to your fingers like ash. You rub it between your thumb and forefinger, and your mind reels. Images rush in all at once. A young woman, the queen, laughing beside a fountain. A meeting in a dark hall, with voices raised and hands clenched. Around goblets, a fire, so much fire. A betrayal, a child with no voice pointing at the stars. You stagger back, gasping. The dust is gone. Just then, a sound cracks through the silence. A bowl falling from a shelf behind you. You spin around. The floor is covered in shattered clay. One of the sealed bowls has burst open. From inside, a single object, a pendant. Gold shaped like a crescent moon resting on a serpent's back. A symbol you've seen before, on the parchment, in the mirror, even in dreams. As you crouch to pick it up, a low vibration runs through the chamber. The shelves begin to shift, slide, rearrange themselves into a new pattern, a map. From above, you realize the bowls form shapes, dunes, rivers, mountains that no longer exist. But at the very center, there's an empty space, a void, and in the middle of that void, a single word carved into the floor, Namira. You say it aloud. The chamber breathes in, every bowl in the room vibrates once. Dust rises from their mouths like smoke from candles snuffed out centuries ago. And then you hear it, a voice, not the queen's this time, but a man's, rich, deep, sorrowful. Namira was the breath of this land, we drank her dry. You whirl around and there, standing in the corridor, is a man in desert robes. Face half-covered, eyes sunken but alive. He holds a staff crowned with a twisted symbol that might be a flame or a tree or both. He doesn't approach, just watches. Who are you, you ask, voice quieter than intended. He tilts his head. I was the one who wrote her out of history. Cool, not terrifying at all. He walks slowly past you, running his fingers across the bowls as he moves. Dust follows him like a shadow that hasn't quite decided what it wants to be. You don't remember me yet, he says softly, but your blood does. You glance down at your hands. They're shaking. When you look back, he's gone. In his place. A single bowl sits on the floor, still warm. You don't touch it. You back away slowly and step out of the chamber. The door seals behind you with a sound like lungs deflating, and above it, carved fresh into the stone. Not all memory is kind. You whisper it once, then keep walking, because kindness isn't what brought you here, but remembering might be what keeps you alive. You don't run, that's important. You could run, but something about this place feels like it would follow, or worse, anticipate. So instead, you walk. The corridor of names narrows until the black stone gives way to rougher, older brick, sun-bleached, chipped and deeply scored by what might be claw marks. Or just time having a bad day. You're still holding the flute, you hadn't noticed. Its weight in your hand feels more personal now, like it belongs to you, not because you claimed it, but because it knows you. Eventually, the corridor opens, into a small atrium. And by small I mean the kind of small that used to be big, before the ceiling collapsed. Light pours in from the hole above, shafts of gold spilling onto cracked tile and broken pottery. A few vines creep down from the sunlight, hopeful, maybe even rude in their optimism. In the center of the atrium stands a statue. It's not elegant. In fact, it's crumbling, one arm missing entirely, the face chipped beyond recognition. But it's unmistakably a queen. You recognize the posture, tall, proud, burdened. You've seen it in your own reflection lately. What catches your attention, though, is what lies at the statue's feet. A broken cartouche, a royal seal. You crouch, brushing off the dust. The hieroglyphs are mostly intact, and while you're not exactly fluent in ancient desert grammar, one symbol stands out. It's the same you saw on the mirror, and the urn, and the pedestal with the serpent carving. It means breath. As you're piecing that together, you hear it again, breathing, not your own. Not just yours. It's rhythmic, shallow, and far too close. You look up. A figure is standing in the atrium's far corner, backlit by sunlight, obscured in shadow. Not tall, not threatening, but still. Very. There. You freeze. The figure doesn't move. Doesn't speak, it just watches. Or maybe listens. A breeze stirs the vines overhead, and one long strand curls down between you and the statue like a curtain pulled too soon. When it drifts aside again, the figure is gone. But the breathing continues. Now it's coming from beneath the floor. You place your ear to the ground because you're incredibly brave or mildly possessed, let's be honest, and you hear it clearly. Steady inhales and exhales. Like a sleeper just below the surface. The tiles beneath your hands shift, not break, shift. Like lungs rising under blankets. And then something clicks. A section of the floor collapses inward, forming a perfect spiral staircase where there was none, definitely not sketchy. You descend. The stairs lead into a cylindrical chamber with walls that seem to breathe. Literally, you can see them expand and contract ever so slightly with each breath. In the center of the room lies a pedestal, shaped like an open palm, and resting in the palm is a scroll, tied shut with a length of braided black and gold thread. You hesitate. There's something ceremonial about it. Sacred, forbidden. So of course you untie it. The parchment unfurls with the weight of centuries. The writing is unfamiliar, but the image in the corner isn't. It's her again, the Queen. Not seated this time, not veiled. Running. You see her fleeing through the very corridors you've just walked, holding this very scroll. Behind her, shadows shaped like men but faceless. And ahead of her, a large door, the same one you saw scratched open behind the mirror. She's almost there. But in the next frame, yes, the scroll has frames like a comic strip, she stumbles. The scroll falls, and the shadows catch up. The last image is her face. Still, silent, eyes wide. Her mouth is open, but not screaming, breathing. You gently re-roll the parchment and place it back in the hand of the stone pedestal. The breathing in. The room stops. That's when you hear the voice, not the Queen's, not yours, a child's. She gave her breath to protect the door. You turn, nothing there. That's why it doesn't open. You spin in a slow circle, still nothing. And then you see it, a small handprint on the far wall, glowing faintly. Child-sized, perfectly formed. You press your own hand to it. Nothing happens, but your hand comes away coated in something faintly glowing. A residue. Memory. Magic? Sweat with a PhD, you don't know, but a thought drifts through your mind like a dream you didn't mean to have. Some doors don't open. They breathe you in. Lovely. The chamber begins to dim. The walls pulse slower now, as if falling. Asleep. You retreat carefully, climbing the stairs. When you emerge, the atrium is empty again. Sunlight gone, vines still. The statue of the Queen now has a new crack down its chest like a heart broken one last time. You place the second sandal beside the first and walk away. But behind you, there's a new sound, not breathing. Footsteps, your own or hers. The hallway stretches before you, impossibly long and dimly lit, though again there are no torches. The light simply exists, clinging to the stone like dew. Your footsteps echo in a rhythm that doesn't quite match your pace, and every now and then you pause to check if it's still just you making those sounds. You pass alcoves carved into the walls, each holding what look like offerings, dried flowers crumbling into powder, bowls filled with small bones, coins melted into odd shapes. You stop in front of one alcove that holds something different, a sandal. The second one, it's identical to the one you found earlier. Same embroidery, same wear, same faint scent of dried fig and oil. You stare at it for a while, then glance. Over your shoulder, still alone, allegedly. You reach out, but before your fingers touch it, the wall behind the alcove groans. Not a mechanical groan, more like a sigh. Tired, ancient, and a little annoyed you're poking around. The wall slides away, revealing a narrow stairway spiraling downward. Of course it does. You take the steps cautiously, your hand trailing the rough wall. As you descend, the temperature changes, not just cooler, denser. The air carries weight like it's been used too many times before. You can taste metal, old ink, and something sweet, like dates, or maybe rot. At the bottom is a circular chamber, larger than anything you've entered so far, and in the center of this room, resting on a marble pedestal shaped like intertwined serpents, is a mirror. Not decorative, not gilded, just a simple round mirror, tilted upward, and it's filled with sky. Not your reflection, not the ceiling. Sky. Vast, endless stretch of blue speckled with stars, and one blood-red moon hanging low in the corner, like it doesn't know it's supposed to go home by dawn. You don't move. You just stare. And then you fall in. Not physically. Not entirely. It's like your thoughts take a step forward before your body has a chance to object. Suddenly, you're standing under that sky. The air is sharp, electric. Sand swirls around your ankles like curious ghosts. You're not alone. The Queen is there, standing on a ridge, her back to you, veil lifted, hair loose. She's speaking to someone or something in a language that twists itself into your ears without permission. You can't understand it, but it feels like a negotiation. Her hands gesture in patterns too precise to be casual. She's giving something. Up. You can feel the sacrifice humming in your teeth. Then you see it. A figure cloaked in blue-black robes standing opposite her. No face, just the suggestion of one. It holds out a bowl. She pours a glowing substance into it. Light, liquid, memory, your memory. No, hers. The figure nods once and disappears. So does the queen. You blink, and you're back in the chamber, kneeling in front of the mirror. The blood moon is gone. Only your own pale face stares back now, but something's changed. You remember the queen's hands. You remember the shape of her offering. You remember not everything, but more. On the edge of the mirror, a phrase has been etched into the stone. Queen does not rule only with memory. She rules with forgetting. You stand, shaken but steady, almost proud of yourself, and then the wind starts. Yes, indoor wind. Welcome to This Place Doesn't Follow Rules territory. It rushes in through unseen cracks, howling in short bursts, as if blowing out candles you can't see. One gust slams into the wall opposite you, revealing something you missed, a doorway, not a majestic one. A crack in the stone, small, almost humble. You step through it. The corridor beyond is unlike anything before. Polished black stone, walls etched with names, hundreds of them, thousands. You run your fingers across a few. Samira, Kale, Nareen. Names you've never heard, but they sting like loss. About halfway down the corridor, you find one scratched out completely. The stone gouged so deeply it's been marred forever. You lean in, just beneath the scratch marks, barely visible under years of wear, is a single word. Mother. You flinch. Not because it's scary, because it's true. You don't know how. You just do. Suddenly, behind you, something shifts. A soft knock, 3 slow taps. You spin, heart jumping, nothing. Just your reflection in the polished stone wall. Except, you're not alone in it. The queen stands behind you, not touching, just watching. Her eyes tired, her mouth unsmiling. You turn. She's gone. You look back. So is the reflection, but etched now into the stone, just beside your shoulder, is a new line of script. You are already part of this. And the hall feels one breath shorter, like the walls have exhaled your arrival. You stand still, blinking against the sudden sunlight, your hand still ghosting where the fabric wall once was. It's gone now. Just sand, just heat, just silence. No flute music, no whispering wind, not even the usual buzz of desert insects. It's like stepping onto a stage after the play has ended and the audience has vanished. Except the set's still here, and something tells you the final act hasn't actually finished. Before you is a courtyard, larger than the last, and somehow untouched by time. Columns rise like bones from the earth, some still bearing faded paint. Turquoise gold and that deep ochre only desert suns seem to know how to make. In the center, a pool. Yes, a real one. Water. Cool, impossibly clear, still as glass. You don't run to it. You approach slowly, because you've read enough myths to know magical water is basically just plot twist soup. And you'd be right to hesitate. As you draw near, the water ripples, though there's no wind, and the surface shifts, not in waves, but in images, like someone swapped out physics for cinema. The first thing you see is yourself. Tired, wide-eyed. Holding that flute you still haven't let go of. Then it changes. A crowd kneeling. A woman in white robes standing above them, arms lifted. Her face is veiled, but her bearing is unmistakable, regal, commanding, lonely. You know it's her. The forgotten queen. She moves her hands in a gesture that sends shivers down your spine, not fear exactly, but recognition. The kind of recognition you feel when you hear an old song on the radio and suddenly remember where you were the first time you heard it. Then a shadow falls over her. A figure appears beside her, a man in black with eyes like dried ink and a curved dagger at his belt. He doesn't look at her. He looks straight through the reflection, at you. You stumble back. The image shatters into rings across the water. Behind you, someone coughs. You spin. No one. But there's something on the ground now, A sandal. A single ancient sandal half buried with embroidery that matches the queen's robes. Next to it, a torn piece of parchment, weighted down by a smooth black stone. You pick it up carefully. The parchment reads, "If you reach the hall." Of breath, do not listen twice. Helpful. Super reassuring. As you tuck the paper away, you hear it again, the cough. This time, unmistakable. From the hallway to your left, the air shifts, warmer, closer, like someone exhaled just behind your neck. You follow the sound. The hallway is narrow, lined with faded tapestries hanging in tatters. Each one seems to depict a different moment, some glorious, some chaotic. One catches your eye, the queen seated on a low cushion surrounded by scrolls, alone. Her crown sits beside her, not on her head. You pause. The embroidery on the cushion matches the sandal. Suddenly you're no longer in the hallway, or at least not just there. Your vision swims, and for a second you're in the tapestry. You hear her breathing. You hear the scratching of her pen. She's writing something over and over in a language you don't understand, but your fingers ache like you've written it too. Then, crack, the tapestry rips in the middle. You're yanked back to the present. At E. Your feet now is a piece of clay broken from the wall. On it a seal, a serpent biting its own tail, and under it 3 words. We drank memory. Nice. Totally not creepy. You keep walking. The hallway opens into a vaulted room filled with broken pedestals, maybe once a gallery. Now a graveyard of empty stands and shattered marble, but in the center, perfectly intact, is a single plinth. On it sits a sealed urn. Its lid is shaped like a falcon's head. Gold, though tarnished. The symbol of Horus. Maybe, or maybe someone just liked birds. You step closer. The air grows heavy, syrupy. Your vision blurs slightly. The urn hums, softly. You place a hand on its lid. It's warm. You lift it. Inside. Dust. Grey. Fine. But the moment you look directly at it, it shimmers. And then you hear them. Voices. Hundreds of them. Whispering. Murmuring, weeping. They speak languages you almost understand. One says your name, you slam the lid shut. The sound cuts off. You drop to your knees, head swimming. You stay there for a long time, breathing, listening, making sure the urn doesn't open again on its own. Eventually, your heartbeat slows, you stand. The hallway ahead flickers with torchlight, except there are no torches. And in the dust behind you, someone has written, "You have begun remembering, but you didn't write it, and you're alone," right? Almost. The sand beneath your shoes crunches like stale sugar as you rise from the chamber. The wind has picked up. It doesn't howl, more like it hums a song you can't place. You climb the staircase slowly, but when you reach the top again, something's changed. The dune is gone. Where there was once a gentle hill of sand, now lies a clean path unnaturally swept. At its end, flanked by palm trees that didn't seem to be there a moment ago, stands an archway made of sun-bleached stone. No gate, no door, just shadow. It's the kind of shadow that isn't just an absence of light. It's the presence of something watching. You step through because of course you do, that's what dreamers do, and let's be honest, if you've made it this far, you're either incredibly brave or impressively bad at risk assessment. Beyond the arch, the Oasis reveals its hidden spine, a narrow corridor of stone walls twisting like a snake. The walls are high, and etched into them are symbols. Stars, moons, serpents coiled into endless loops. At first glance, they seem decorative, but the longer you stare, the more you realize they're changing positions. Not rapidly, not violently. Just subtly. One coil tighter, one crescent thinner, one star slightly dimmer. It's not unsettling. Not yet. The corridor empties into a courtyard with cracked tiles and a dried-up fountain in the center. The fountain's base is carved with scenes, figures kneeling under sunbeams, hands raised, mouths open in silent praise. One of the figures wears a distinct crown, the same shape as the one you found buried in the sand last night. Or was that a dream? As you lean over the edge of the fountain, wind ripples through the dry air, and a sound reaches your ears. Faint, hollow, rhythmic. You follow it, down another passage, past a series of statues so worn their faces are just soft bumps, then a turn, then another, and finally you find the source, a stone slab door, slightly ajar, and behind it, music, soft, reedy, like a flute made of bone and breath. You push, the door open. A rush of cool air spills out, heavy with the scent of old incense. Inside, a circular chamber glows faintly blue, lit by reflected light bouncing from a small skylight above. The floor is mosaic, intricate and cracked, and in the very center stands a man, or at least something shaped like a man. He's wrapped in layered cloth, banded in colors that once were vibrant. A metal circlet clings to his brow and his eyes. They are closed. His fingers hover over a wind instrument, pressed to his lips. But there's no breath, no movement. And yet the music continues. You step closer, and as your shadow touches his robe, his eyes flick open. You do not scream, which is impressive. Honestly, gold star for you. He lowers the flute slowly, and his voice rasps like sand sliding through a sieve. She built the passage for those who remembered her name. You do not, but your shadow remembers. Okay, creepy. But poetic, he points, behind you, and you turn to see a section of the wall has peeled back like wet paper. Behind it a tunnel carved in spirals, leading down, always down. You glance back at the musician, but he's gone. The flute rests where he stood, still warm, and still humming with that tune. You pick it up. Not because it's smart, because you're compelled, and somewhere deep in the spiral below, you hear a whisper. One step for forgetting, one for remembering. Keep count. You descend, the flute in your hand, your heart pacing its own rhythm. The air grows cooler, damper. The symbols on the wall begin to shift faster now. One shows a woman kneeling, then standing, then crowned, then burning. You pause. You breathe, you keep going. At the bottom, the passage opens into another chamber, larger, rougher, clearly older. And there, carved directly into the wall, you see it. A map, but not of any place you've ever seen, not cities, not roads, just dunes, stars, and the shapes of wind. And at its center, marked in silver paint that hasn't tarnished, a single phrase, the E. Oasis remembers. You reach out to touch it, and the wall pulls back like fabric. Sand pours inward, wind howls, and you step through, back into sunlight. But you're no longer at the Oasis entrance. You're inside it now, somewhere deeper, and the sand behind you has already erased your trail. Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere different. Not a cold, damp castle or a haunted battlefield for once, but to the edge of a desert so vast, it makes your dreams feel small. You're going to walk barefoot on warm sand under stars so bright they hum, and in the middle of it all, a forgotten oasis where history chose to whisper, not shout. This isn't one of those tidy museum stories with clean labels and temperature control. No, this tale smells like old spices and sounds like wind that's forgotten its destination. You'll be brushing against faded silk, hearing the creak of doors that haven't been opened in centuries. And trust me, it gets weird fast. Also, just saying, if you were actually there, you probably wouldn't survive the first night. Between the sand scorpions, ancient curses, and zero Wi-Fi, you'd be dinner or dust. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment telling me where and what time you're listening from, especially if your clock says something ridiculous like 3:12 a.m. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk slowly through the soft sand, like velvet heated by 1,000 suns. The air isn't cold, but the wind carries a scent that feels buried, damp stone, burnt wood, and faintly, the ghost of pomegranate perfume someone wore a century ago. The oasis appears like a hallucination sculpted out of memory. Clusters of date palms stand still, as if guarding secrets. A small pool sits silent, its surface mirroring the sky, burning like a cracked ruby. There's no sound, except the lazy shift of sand beneath your steps, and one quiet breath, probably yours. Hopefully. At the edge of the oasis rises a gentle dune, unnaturally shaped, as if something had been buried there. Or perhaps something is trying to claw its way out. You move closer. The sand begins to sink. It pours down like curious children running downhill, revealing a staircase beneath, smooth, too precise to be nature's work. You kneel and touch the stone. Cold, smooth, and undeniably man-made. A hidden passageway? Or an ancient trap politely opening its jaws? You breathe deep. The wind changes direction, and against every reasonable thought in your head you descend. Nothing dramatic happens. No stone doors slam shut behind you. No echoing roars or collapsing ceilings. Just the hush of falling sand, as if it's rooting for your decision. The stairs lead into a sunken chamber, perfectly still. No dust, no wind, just silence. White stone walls covered in strange markings. Cracked columns reaching upward like ancient ribs. And in the center, an upturned throne. Not your fairy tale throne. It's awkward, unceremonious, flipped like someone wanted to forget it existed. On the floor nearby, a dark stain. Reddish-brown. Old blood. You kneel closer and brush the edge. It's not quite dry, not quite wet. And then, a voice. Female. Old but not frail. It presses close to your ear like a whisper that knows your name. The last to sit upon this throne was never spoken of again. You whirl around. No one's there. But on the wall across the room, a carving has appeared. A woman's face, stern, regal, hair braided high, eyes carved with haunting depth, like deep wells that remember every wish thrown in. You're sure, positively sure, that carving was not there before. You reach out and touch the wall. It's cold. It hums, and beneath her image a single line etched into the stone. The keeper of memory must forget before remembering. Yep, that line. It's going to haunt you for the next 54 sections, just letting you know. And so, your first night ends. Not with discovery, but with the realization. You're not here to uncover the past. You're here to be reminded of it, and something or someone is very eager for you to continue. The path behind the altar doesn't feel like a hallway. It feels like a decision. Narrow, sloping downward. The air gets cooler, almost damp, like something ancient is exhaling below. The walls press in close, too smooth to be natural, too curved to be comfortable. You run your fingers along the stone. It's warm to the touch in places. In others, it pulses faintly, like veins buried in architecture. Halfway through the tunnel, the silence breaks. Not with sound, with feeling, a sharp prickle in your chest. Recognition wrapped in warning. You know this place, even though you've never seen it, because somewhere, in another echo of another life, you stood here before. The tunnel opens into a chamber lit by an impossible glow. The walls shine faintly, soft amber like candlelight reflected in honey. The floor is tiled in concentric circles, and at the very center sits a book, just one. Its cover is dull red, cracked around the edges, the leather worn thin where countless fingers must have touched it. But the center? The center still holds. A symbol that refuses to fade, a serpent coiled around a sun. You approach slowly. Your footsteps don't echo here. The sound is absorbed, swallowed by the hush that wraps this place like a blanket too warm to argue with. You reach the book. Your hand hovers over it, and before you touch it, you whisper without meaning to, "What did they erase?" The book answers by opening itself. Pages flip, dry but eager. They stop halfway through, landing on a spread with no words, only images. 1. Side shows the queen on a throne. Not the stone seat you saw earlier, but a smaller one, almost domestic. She's smiling. A child sits in her lap. The child's face is blurred, not faded, blurred, as though the memory itself has been censored. On the other page, a tower in flames, a crowd with raised fists. A circle of advisors all pointing at her. The transition between the two is jarring, too fast, too cruel. Below the images, one line of writing appears in curling ink. The story was too clean, so they dirtied the truth. You turn the page. This one is written in full, a record, a journal entry in the Queen's hand. You read slowly. "I gave them a future and they traded it for comfort. I gave them water, and they sold it to foreign kings. I gave them peace, and they demanded glory. When the rain stopped, they came to me with palms open, not for answers, but for blame. I drank the burden. I gave my breath to the basin. I let my name be taken from their mouths. They cannot speak of me, but they remember. I see it in their dreams. As the words settle into your thoughts, the chamber dims. The glow retracts until the only light comes from the book itself, and then, from behind you, a voice speaks. Not hers, not yours, someone older, male. Familiar in that distant way where memory feels like déjà vu with a grudge. She was not supposed to choose. You turn. A man stands at the edge of the chamber, robed in white, hands clasped behind his back. His face is stern, lined with age, and his eyes are empty. Not blind, just unwilling to see. You don't speak, because you understand what he is. The chronicler, the one who rewrote her, the one who erased. He walks slowly toward you. We needed a symbol, not a woman. He gestures to the book. A myth, not a memory. You ask, and the child? His eyes flinch just once, then harden. There was no child. You don't argue. You just look at the book again, and on the page that once held images, new ink begins to form. A name. But it's not hers. It's yours. You watch as it writes itself. The one who remembers. The man vanishes. The chamber darkens. The hue. Book closes. And then from above a door opens, a ceiling panel sliding away to reveal a ladder carved into the stone. You climb, each rung cold, firm, silent. When you reach the top, you emerge into a room unlike any you've seen so far. A sanctuary, lush with vines, flowers blooming in impossible places. A skylight above casts gentle sunlight over a table set for one. Water trickles somewhere. The air smells like jasmine and warm bread, but there's no food. Just a note. Written in the Queen's hand. You've reached where they could not. Rest here. One night, one dream. Then come to the tower. Below the note, a simple cot waits. Blankets folded. A pillow. With embroidered edges, you lie down. And for the first time since your journey began, you sleep, and she dreams with you. You dream in languages you've never spoken. Scents rise around you, lotus smoke, hot metal, almond oil. You hear her footsteps not behind you, but inside you. The rhythm of a queen who once walked barefoot through courtyards covered in blood. And Jasmine alike. In the dream, you're not watching Namira, you're being her, not all of her. Just a sliver, a heartbeat, a moment. You're standing on a high platform. Below you, a city that pulses like a living thing. Curved roofs shimmer under the desert sun. The sound of fountains mixes with drums and low chanting. You raise a hand. The crowd quiets. You speak. Though the dream doesn't give you your own voice, instead your words float through the air like silk. We do not conquer the desert. We become part of it. The crowd doesn't cheer. They breathe. As one. Then the vision shifts. Fast, your throne room. Empty. The air is sharp, sour. Someone has spilled ink across the floor, intentionally, like a signature erased in protest. A door slams. You turn. But the dream ends before you see who it was. You wake up in the sanctuary, breath caught somewhere between here and there. The sunlight has shifted. It's morning, or whatever passes for morning in a place like this. A bird sings outside the skylight. The cot is still warm. Your body aches in a way that feels earned, not imposed. You sit up, and on the table where the Queen's note had been is something new. A key, small, bronze, shaped like a stylized sun with teeth that look almost ceremonial. Tied to it is a scrap of fabric, deep blue with a symbol stitched in gold, a circle split in half, one side with waves, the other with flames. You've seen that symbol before. On a doorway you didn't know how to open. At the far end of the room, a thin curtain of vines parts slowly on its own. Behind it is a short tunnel that slopes upward, gentle, inviting, and at the end of that tunnel, the tower. Yes, the tower. Not tall as towers go, but ancient, round, pale stone with a spiral of black, markings wrapping it like a serpent that got tired halfway up. Windows blink like half-lidded eyes. You approach slowly, because places like this don't let you in just because you have a key. They let you in when they're ready. As you reach the entrance, the wind shifts again. You hear laughter. Not current, echoed, a child's, and then just. Under that, a woman's voice, soft and low. If you've come to break the silence, do it gently. The door accepts your key without resistance. It clicks once, then swings open. The inside is warm, dusty. Books line the walls, actual books, not illusions or symbols. Scrolls, parchments, bound volumes with cracked spines and ribboned bookmarks that seem to shift when you're not looking. There are cushions on the floor, teacups empty and waiting, a fire pit, cold but clean. At the center of the room is a pedestal. Upon it, a bowl of sand, simple, unadorned. Beside it, a single candle. You light it, because of course you do. And as the flame flickers, the sand begins to move. Tiny whirls swirl. Into words. Not many, just 3 lines. This is where her name ended. This is where your voice begins. Speak. You don't ask what it means. You just breathe in. Steady, and you say her name. Not just Nimira, but the full truth of her. Queen of forgotten wells. Mother of silenced memory. Bearer of cursed breath. You speak it all. And the flame rises, the bowl glows, and all around the room, the books open themselves, pages flip, scrolls unfurl, names fill the air, ones erased, hidden, whispered in dreams. And then, so quietly you almost miss it, a new voice speaks behind you. Now we are both remembered. A U-turn. She's there, not a ghost, not an echo. Nimira, standing as tall as the stories refuse to let her. She doesn't smile. She doesn't need to. You already understand. You bow your head, not out of obedience, but recognition. And she nods once. Slow then says, "Come, there is one memory left." She offers her hand, and you take it. Her hand is warm. Not searing, not spectral, just warm like sunlit stone at dusk. You don't expect that. You thought holding the hand of a forgotten queen would feel colder, heavier, like it would come with weight. But instead, it feels like permission. She leads you up the spiral staircase inside the tower. No words, just footsteps and breath. Hers steady, yours catching on every 4th step, like your body knows you're walking into something final. The walls of the staircase are etched with winding lines, not writing, not art, more like memory scars. Moments scratched into stone by the building itself. You glimpse flickers as you climb. A child reaching toward a crown too large for their head. A woman at a window, watching stars vanish into a storm. A hand on a map, tracing borders. That won't stay still. At the top of the stairs, a door awaits, made of glass, frosted over, but glowing faintly from the other side. Nimira releases your hand and places hers on the surface. The frost melts in a spiral, revealing the room beyond. It's not what you expect. No throne, no treasure, no prophecy. Just a bedroom. Small, plain. A low bed tucked in the corner. A writing desk with a single chair. Shelves filled not with scrolls but with keepsakes. Faded cloth, cracked clay cups, a child's sandal. In the center of the room, a basin filled with water. Not shimmering, not glowing. Just water. Real. Quiet. She walks to it, kneels, and gestures for you to join her. You both look into the basin, but this time the water doesn't show you anything. It waits. Nimira finally speaks again. Her voice is softer now, worn at the edges. This was my last room, the one no one wrote about. She places both hands on the rim of the basin, as if anchoring herself. They wrote about my throne, my soldiers, my treaties. They wrote about the curse, the silence, the rebellion, but they never wrote about where I waited. You say nothing, you don't need to, she continues. I poured every breath I had into this place, the oasis, the city beneath, the wells, the flame that never dies, the dreams. I gave all of it, so they could forget and still live. A pause. Then she turns to you, not dramatic, just deliberate, but you're not here to forget. She reaches into the basin and pulls something up from beneath the water, a mask. Simple, carved from pale wood, lined in silver. The inside is marked with symbols that swim when you try to read them. She holds it out. One memory left, the one that costs, the one that binds. You take the mask. Your fingers tremble. Of course they do. When you press it to your face, the world goes silent. You're no longer in the tower, you're inside the final memory. A battlefield, but no swords. No blood, just an empty throne. A crowd waiting. A sky so dark it presses down on the world like mourning cloth. You see her, Nimira, standing alone. She holds a scroll, the one you saw before, the one she sealed in her throne room. She lifts it, high, and with a voice steady enough to make gods weep, she speaks. I give them my breath, my name, my silence. I give it so they may rebuild without fear of remembering me. And then she steps down, not falls, not fades, steps, voluntarily, into the earth. The ground opens for her, like it was always waiting, and as it closes, the people forget. Their eyes glaze, their mouths slacken, they blink, and they no longer know why they were standing there at all. The throne remains, but it is no longer hers, it is no one's. And then, you're back, the tower. The basin, the queen, she stands, and for the first time her face softens, not into a smile but into peace. You brought me to the edge of the silence, and now I walk the rest. You try to speak, but she shakes her head gently. Say nothing. Let it hold. She walks to the door. Pauses. The oasis is yours now, not to rule, to remember. And with that, she steps through the glass door and disappears. No wind, no music. Just a silence that feels complete. You sit alone in the tower. For a while. Then you rise, you walk to the desk, find a blank page and begin to write. Not her story. Yours. Because someone must remember the one who remembered. You write for hours, or maybe minutes. Time feels like a tired rumor in this place, slipping through your fingers no matter how tightly you try to grasp it. The pen in your hand is older than it looks, the ink surprisingly fresh, and the words come faster than thought. Not because you're composing, because you're recalling. You're not writing a legend, you're rebuilding a memory. Page after page, you restore pieces of Nimira that were never meant to vanish. Her voice, her contradictions, her kindness and fury braided into every decree. You write her laughter, soft, rare, real. You write the day she burned every map drawn by men who'd never walked barefoot on her land. You write the lullabies no one knew she sang, and the secret names she gave her favorite wells, and when you're done, the final page simply reads, she was never forgotten, just waiting. You close the book. It hums beneath your fingers, barely, audible, like a sleeping animal that's no longer afraid to dream. You stand. The sanctuary is quiet now, still wrapped in that strange, clean light filtering from the skylight. A warm breeze stirs through the open door at the base of the tower, and when you step outside, something has shifted. The oasis isn't ruined anymore. It's not restored exactly, but the bones of it, the wells, the courtyards, the gentle curve of a domed roof in the distance, have emerged from the sand like they were waiting for permission. You walk through the paths you once crawled, past the reflection pool now glistening, the courtyard with the shattered tiles. Someone has swept them into a spiral, a message perhaps, or art. And then you hear it, the sound of hooves. You turn toward the horizon, a caravan, real, present. They're travelers, pilgrims, perhaps scholars, or maybe just wanderers like you, drawn here by something they didn't understand until they arrived. You watch as they dismount, approach the edge of the oasis with hesitation, reverence. One of them, a young girl with a crescent-shaped pendant around her neck, pauses beside a pillar. She places her palm flat against the stone, whispers a name you almost don't catch, Nimira. You inhale sharply, because this time it doesn't vanish. The name lingers. The air keeps it. And the girl, she smiles. not because she understands everything, but because she understands enough. Later you find a quiet place beneath a date palm, sit on the warm stone, and watch the sky shift above the oasis. The stars blink into place like old friends slowly recognizing you. You reach into your satchel, pull out the last thing you hadn't looked at since before the tower. The flute. You raise it to your lips, and you play. Not a melody, not yet. Just a few soft notes held gently like someone knocking on a familiar door, and far away, maybe in a dream, maybe in the wind, you hear her answer. One note. Clear, grateful, free. The next morning arrives without fanfare. The sun doesn't blaze, it stretches, warm and patient. Like it too has just woken from a long sleep and is trying not to startle the day. You open your eyes beneath the shade of the date palm and blink against the golden calm. You're still here. The oasis is still real, and most remarkably, so are you. You rise slowly. Your body aches in quiet places, behind your knees, in your shoulders, at the edges of dreams that haven't quite let go. The flute rests beside you on the stone, cool to the touch, silent now but humming gently at the core. In the distance, the caravan is stirring. People move softly, no shouting, no barking orders, just murmurs, clinking metal, and the laughter of a child. It's normal, which is strange and beautiful. You walk the curved path that loops toward the far side of the oasis, where the ground dips gently into a shallow basin. The last time you were here, it was dry and filled with bones. Now, water. Clear, still, edged with green. A man kneels at the edge, cupping his hands to drink. He doesn't notice you, or pretends not to. You recognize the amulet around his neck. Same. Symbol carved above the library's door. A spiral of flame and breath. He must be a scribe, a keeper. Maybe he heard the call in his sleep, just like you did, and then beside him you notice it, half buried in the sand, a tile, not broken, intact. You crouch, brush it off. It depicts a woman seated beneath a tree, writing into the sand with her finger. A child sits at her feet, mimicking the movement. Above them, carved into the frame, are two words, she taught. You run your thumb across the inscription, and for a heartbeat, the air holds a breath. One you don't recognize as your own. The man beside you finally speaks without looking up. They said she vanished. They said she never was. You glance at him. He meets your eyes, but someone kept the truth. You don't correct him. You just nod because it's true, even if you can't explain how, even if you never meant to be that someone. The truth survived. The oasis remembers. Later, as the sun rises higher and the others begin exploring what little remains above the sand, you slip away, toward the outer edge of the ruins. You find the tree, the one from the tile. It's still here, still alive. Its branches stretch wide, welcoming, and at its base carved faintly into the bark. This is where the voices begin again. You sit beneath it, close your eyes, and press your palm to the earth. You feel warmth, a pulse, and deep, below, the softest echo of her voice. Write what they couldn't. You nod once and you begin. You don't write a history. You write her heartbeat. You write the scent of her gardens, the way she would hum when the wind blew west. The time. She danced barefoot in the sand during the first rain in 7 years. The jokes she told that made no sense but made people laugh anyway. You write her fear, her anger, her absolute unwavering hope, and as your pen moves, scratch after sacred scratch, a breeze stirs through the oasis. Not hot, not dry, cool, kind, almost. Like a blessing. One that says, keep going. There are still things she once remembered. You write until your fingers ache, until the sun leans low and the shadows stretch like cats across the ruins, curling in corners they once ruled. The paper before you is blotched with ink and dust and something else. Presence. As if each word calls her closer. At some point you stop writing, not because you're finished, because the air grows still, expectant. You look up. A doorway has appeared, not built, not summoned, not magical in the flashy firework sense. Just there, embedded in the cliffside where before there was only rock. No carvings, no frame, only a faint shimmer along the edges, like heat waves caught in stone. You stand. You don't ask why it's there. You don't ask who opened it. You already know. You enter. The passage inside is tall, smooth, gently sloped downward like a descending breath. The light follows you, though you carry no flame. It seems to rise from your skin, or maybe the memories clinging to it. The walls are lined with soft grooves that might once have been shelves, or beds, or prayer seats. They're empty now, but each still holds an invisible outline of someone who sat, knelt, waited. You reach the end of the hall and find a chamber carved in a perfect circle. In the center, a platform of dark stone. Upon it, a single object, a mask, not like the first one. This one is made of translucent crystal, thin as breath. Its shape is delicate, like it was never meant for battle or ceremony, but for remembering. Inside the mask, something shifts, not reflections, not faces, scenes, moments. They move like liquid, fleeting flashes, Namira's hands tying back. Her hair, a flash of gold at her throat, the crescent moon pendant. A stone dropped into a basin. The child, Azael, sleeping, then gone. You step closer. The platform hums as your foot crosses the outer ring, not threatening, not warning, just acknowledging. You reach for the mask, and this time when you lift it to your face, it doesn't darken your vision, it clarifies it. The room fades. You're not transported, you're revealed. You stand again on the wall of her city, but now the stars above you are vivid, alive. The sounds are sharper, drums, wind, distant laughter. You are not her, but you are beside her, and she turns. Her eyes meet yours, not as queen and subject, not as ghost and dreamer, as keepers. Her voice is quiet. There was a night they tried to erase, a night I let them forget. She turns back to the city. Tonight we remember it together. The city glows. Not with torches or fires, but with thousands of small lights like floating embers, drifting from balconies, windows, palms. You realize they're memories. Each one released by someone who lived here. Each one surrendered long ago to preserve the silence, and now they return. You and Namira watch together and you feel it. Not just her story, but your place in it, the breath you carry. The silence you broke, the name you restored. You remove the mask, you're back in the chamber, but something's changed. The walls are no longer blank. They're filled with words, not written in ink or carved in stone. They glow, and the last line reads, "She walked into silence. You walked her out. You step away from the platform. No need to take the mask with you. You already carry what matters. The passage behind you is open. You walk toward it, slow, calm, and as you exit, you hear one last whisper, a thought placed gently in your mind like a bookmark. Not the end, just the part they never dared to tell. Outside, the oasis breathes. It's not metaphor now, you can feel it. The pulse of the earth beneath your feet, the rhythm of the wind threading through the palms, the steady inhale of a place no longer holding its breath. The air is cool, scented, with date blossom and something older, frankincense maybe, or memory itself. The others from the caravan have begun exploring further, not digging, not documenting, listening. You see them kneeling at cracked walls, heads bowed. One woman runs her fingers along a length of ancient thread, like she's reading it in braille. They don't look at you. Not out of rudeness, out of respect. Because they know somehow that you're not just passing through this story. You're woven into it now. You make your way to the western edge of the ruins, where a cluster of stone arches lean toward each other like conspirators mid-whisper. One arch still stands intact. Carved along its curve is a line of writing that wasn't visible. The first time you passed, this is the breath that was taken. You walk through it. The ground shifts beneath your feet, not crumbling but unlocking. Sand spills away from a hidden seam, revealing a staircase spiraling downward, lit by soft, flickering flame that seems to source itself. You descend. 1 turn, 2, 3. At the bottom, a small chamber, circular, quiet, familiar. But this time not alone. At the far end of the room, seated against the curved wall, is an old man. His robe is dust-colored, his beard a soft gray. He holds no scroll, no scepter, just a bowl of water cupped in his lap. He looks up when you enter. You found her. His voice is low. Not surprised, just, sure. You nod. He tilts the bowl slightly. You see your reflection behind your face, hers, then she is breathing again. He sets the bowl down and stands, slowly. Every joint sounds like it's remembering how to move. You ask, "Who are you?" He smiles. The last one who remembered before you. He gestures to a nearby shelf. Carved into the stone above it is a date, faded but legible, centuries old, and beneath it, your name, fresh, as though the wall had been waiting all this time for someone to fill in the next line. You glance at the shelf. One space is empty. For a moment you don't understand, then you pull the flute from your satchel. You place it there, carefully. The old man nods once, then turns and walks through an archway that wasn't there before. You do not follow. This is where his part ends. You remain a little longer. You return to the surface just before dusk. The sky is turning lavender, the kind of color that only appears when the world has something to forgive. A breeze stirs the palms. The air is quiet, expectant, soft, and then a sound, low, steady, like someone blowing across the mouth of a bottle. A note. The caravan has begun to play music, nothing formal. No rhythm yet, just sound, just courage. You sit beneath the tree again. The same tree from the tile. You don't write this time, you just listen to the music, to the wind, to the oasis, breathing, alive. And as the stars begin to stitch themselves across the sky, one by one, you whisper her name. Not loudly, but loud enough for the world to remember. Night settles across the oasis like a soft, familiar hand. The stars don't twinkle. They stand guard, each one bright and still, as if afraid to blink and miss what comes next. You remain beneath the tree, long after the music drifts into silence. The caravan has gone quiet too. Small lanterns flicker in the distance, tucked into crumbled alcoves and ancient doorways, where strangers now sleep beside stories older than anything they were taught to believe. You should sleep, but you don't, because something stirs again. Not in the wind, not in the sand, in you. It's not restlessness, it's memory. Something unfinished, still echoing from below. You rise, follow your feet. They lead you, unquestioned, to the oldest part of the ruins, a stone plaza cracked by time, rimmed with shattered columns. At the far end stands a weathered arch, half sunk, into the earth. You duck beneath it, descend a short set of stairs, and enter a chamber where the air feels heavier than it should. There's no fire here, only reflection. Literally, the walls are polished stone, smooth, mirror-like. Except these. Mirrors don't show your face. They show her, Nemira, in fragments. One panel shows her kneeling beside a man with a bloodied leg, wrapping it gently with her own shawl. Another reveals her standing before a wall map, holding a candle close as she traces fault lines across dunes. Another, just her alone, seated at a basin, combing her hair. But none of them are grand, none regal. These are not her monuments, they are her moments, the ones no one wrote down. The ones the official histories didn't find poetic enough. You walk past each image, your fingers ghosting the surface. They don't shimmer, they don't vanish, they stay. At the far end, you find the largest mirror. This one is blank. But as you stand before it, your reflection does appear. Except, it's not you. It's someone wearing your shape. But older, stronger, and behind your mirrored self, the child, Azael, standing silent, holding a scroll. You reach out. So does the reflection. And as your hand touches the glass, it gives, not shatters, not warps. It accepts, and suddenly you're somewhere else, not a room, not a vision, a threshold, a space between the now and the not yet. You stand on a narrow path surrounded by darkness that feels alive, but not dangerous, curious, like the dark wants to know what you've brought with you, And there on the path is Nimira, for the first time not as queen, not as a ghost, just her, barefoot, no veil, no pendant, no crown, just a woman who chose silence for others, and finally, has the chance to speak. She steps closer. You brought him back. You turn. Azael stands at the edge of the dark, holding the scroll. He says nothing, but he nods. The scroll unrolls between them, not with ceremony, but with ease, like fingers remembering how to play a song they once knew by heart. She reads it silently. Tears roll down her cheeks. Not many, just one or two. When she finishes, she doesn't speak. She simply presses her forehead to his, and the moment glows, not with magic, not with power, with peace. And then they both turn to you. She reaches out again, but this time she places something in your palm, a stone, small, smooth, etched with the same spiral from the tower mask. This is not to keep, she says. It's to pass on. You blink, and you're back. The mirror gone. The room empty, but the stone remains. Warm in your hand, you exit into the starlight. The tree welcomes you again. You sit beneath it, the stone in your lap. And finally, sleep comes. And the oasis keeps breathing, because now someone new remembers. And that is how her name survives. The dawn arrives in whispers. No fanfare, no burst of color, just a slow unraveling of shadows, the kind of morning that feels like it's asking for permission to return. You open your eyes beneath the tree, and for a moment you forget where you are, not because of confusion, because of peace. You sit up slowly. The stone Nimira placed in your palm is still there, warm and quiet like it's dreaming alongside you. Around the edge, the spiral seems to have deepened overnight. It looks more like a path now, or a map, or maybe a question. You hold it to the light. A tiny shimmer glints in the grooves, not gold, not magic, just truth made visible. You rise. The others from the caravan are already awake. You watch from afar as they gather near the edge of the oasis. Voices low, eyes scanning the ruins not for treasure but for memory. A few of them carry offerings, cloth, beads, folded paper. They place them beneath the columns, beneath the tree, into the hands of broken statues like apologies left gently on a windowsill. You walk past them, unseen and somehow known. No one stops you. No one speaks. Because your task isn't here anymore. It's below. The path back to the basin chamber is easier now, as if the earth has memorized your footsteps. You pass through the old arch, descend the familiar stairs, and reach the circle of stone where the mask once waited. The room is empty now, except for one thing, a door, not like the others. This one is etched into the floor, a trapdoor, a keyhole shaped exactly like the spiral stone. You kneel. Hold your breath. Place the stone into the socket. It clicks once, the door doesn't swing, it inhales, and then slowly, softly, it lowers, revealing stairs descending into silence. You go. The air is thick, not stale, not cold, just full. Like this. Part of the oasis still remembers everything, and hasn't had anyone to tell it to for a long, long time. At the bottom, you find a cavern. Walls curved like a womb. A single torch burns in a carved niche, though no one lit it. In the center of the space, a wide stone table. On it, dozens of seals, each one cracked, each one labeled with names, dates, symbols. Most are unfamiliar, all but one. Yours, you find it. Instantly, a tiny plaque beneath it bears a single inscription, "The breath returned." You touch it. It doesn't react, you don't need it to. Instead, you lift your gaze to the far wall. Carved across its surface are names, thousands. Some in languages you've never seen, others in alphabets you recognize, though the names themselves are lost to you. And then, carved slightly deeper than the rest, Nimira, beneath it a new line, still damp with fresh-cut stone, remembered by one who listened. You don't cry, you just press your fingers to the name and whisper again. I remember. The flame in the wall gutter briefly, then steadies. A breeze circles the chamber, slow and warm, like someone exhaling in gratitude. You stay there a long while, then rise. The spiral stone pops gently from the keyhole as you ascend. You pocket it, not to keep, to give, one day, to someone else. Someone who asks, someone who listens, someone who, like you, comes not to know, but to remember, and as you step into the light again, the air sings faintly through the palms. Not a song, a breath, still shared, still alive, still hers. The path back to the surface feels lighter this time, as if the earth has exhaled something it held far too long, an ache that's finally named and therefore no longer dangerous. When you emerge into the early morning haze, the oasis is stirring, gently. Birds flit between the palms. A child from the caravan traces shapes in the sand with a stick. Spirals, then suns, then what might be a queen's crown. They don't look up as you pass, but they start humming softly, a tune you've never heard but recognize in your bones. You keep walking, toward the edge of the oasis, where the old stones give way to open desert, and a structure waits, a pavilion, newly uncovered by the wind. Simple in shape, 4 columns, a cloth canopy torn by time but still holding on. You might have missed it days ago, might have thought it just another ruin, but today it pulses with invitation. You step beneath the canopy. At the center is a plinth, flat, wide, unadorned, and atop it, a box, small, sand-colored, closed by a clasp that looks suspiciously like a serpent biting its own tail. You know better now than to call anything in this place a coincidence. You open the box. Inside is a mirror, cracked, not shattered, not ruined, just fractured, into 5 uneven pieces, arranged carefully inside like petals of something once whole. Each piece reflects a different version of you. In one, your hair is dusted with sand and silver. In another, you're smiling like you've just told a secret that made someone laugh. One reflection shows you holding a torch, another holding a child. But the 5th piece shows her Nimira, not facing you, facing away. You blink and she's gone. The 5th shard now reflects only the desert sky, and a small piece of parchment has appeared in the box, pressed between the mirror's edge and the wall. You unfold it. If I gave up my name, it was not to disappear. It was to wait for someone who would carry it differently. You close the box, and something in the clasp unlocks. The serpent's jaw opens slightly, and within it, a scroll. You take it. Unroll it slowly. It's blank, except for the first line. The 2nd chronicle begins here. You don't understand it. Not fully, but you feel something settle in your chest, like a door closing gently, or a story choosing not to end, but pause, until someone else picks up the thread. You sit in the pavilion for a while. The breeze cools, the sky fades from gold to soft white, and slowly others begin to arrive. Not tourists, not seekers, just people. Each one drawn by something unspoken. They kneel, sit, wait, not looking at you, just near you. And then a voice behind you says gently, "Will you tell the story again?" You turn. It's the girl from the caravan. The one who traced the crown in the sand. She's holding a reed pen and hope. You smile, sit straighter, and say yes, but not as it was written, as it lived. You take the scroll, uncap the ink, dip the pen and begin. There was once a queen who ruled an oasis carved from wind and memory, and as your voice spills into the air, the palms sway, the sand stills, and somewhere, just at the edge of hearing, Nimira breathes in again. You keep writing long after your voice goes quiet. The girl listens, cross-legged in the shade, her eyes wide but calm, like she's hearing a bedtime story that isn't just hers, but everyone's. Others gather slowly, sitting nearby, not interrupting, just bearing witness, because that's what remembering really is, not shouting, not claiming, listening together. You pause only when your hand cramps, and even then, the reed pen feels reluctant to rest. The scroll now bears a dozen lines, maybe more. Some sections are careful and neat. Others look rushed, written mid-thought, mid-feeling. It doesn't matter. None of this is about perfection. It's about presence. The girl takes the scroll in her hands, reads a few lines aloud to herself quietly, like trying on a name that once belonged to someone else, and now maybe also belongs to her. When she finishes, she looks at you. What happened to the ones who stayed behind? You don't. Ask what she means, because you do know. Not just the rebels, not just the advisors, but the quiet ones. The dreamers, the writers, the sleepers. Those who didn't abandon Nymeria but didn't follow her into forgetting either. You think of the dream hall, the rows of empty mats, the basin where breath was stored like currency. You answer softly, some stayed asleep, some forgot by choice, but a few waited for someone to wake them. She blinks once, then nods, as if this makes perfect sense. You rise, stretching your spine against the curve of the canopy. In the distance, more figures arrive. Not many, just 2 or 3. Older, slower. Their faces sunburned, but their eyes alight. You don't know them, but they know this place. And as they pass beneath the pavilion arch, one of them whispers, "It's open again." Then places something at the base of the plinth. A book. Its cover is cracked, its binding barely holding. But the title, carved into the leather, is unmistakable. Testimonies for the Nameless. You don't ask how they found it. You just understand. It survived buried maybe, banned likely, but not destroyed, because memory, like water, has a way of slipping through cracks, finding roots, waiting for rain. The girl opens the book reverently, flips to a page with faded ink, and reads aloud. There was a time when our queen walked through dreams, and we followed, not because she ruled, but because she remembered us. She looks up, her voice steady, no longer asking but offering, "Can we write them too?" And just like that, something shifts, not in the air, not in the sand, in the silence. It opens, welcomes. You reach into your satchel and retrieve the spiral stone. You place it on the plinth beside the book. The light around it pulses once, then stays still. And slowly, people begin to bring their own offerings. A faded ribbon, a shard of pottery with a child's drawing on it, a coin engraved with no face, just a sun. No one directs them, they simply know, because now the Oasis is not just a ruin, it's a library, a sanctuary for memory that refused to stay buried, a place for breath that was once taken, and now, finally, shared. You sit again, and as the girl dips her pen in fresh ink and begins to write beside your words, a breeze stirs the scroll. The letters flutter. Not away, forward. Because the story doesn't end here. It continues. By mid-afternoon, the Oasis hums with quiet purpose. Not busy, not bustling, just alive. Like a great animal waking from a gentle hibernation. There's a rhythm to it now. One person writes, another reads aloud. A third, smooth sand over a path. While someone else stacks stones into a marker. No one gives orders, no one needs to. The memory of hierarchy is fading here. What remains is community. You move between the columns and shade-dappled walls with no real goal, just letting your feet trace stories before your mind catches up. Eventually, you find yourself in a part of the Oasis you haven't yet visited. A quiet alcove half collapsed, only one arch remains standing. Vines creep down its legs like green handwriting, scrawling their own stubborn language across stone. And tucked beneath the arch, nestled in a bed of dust and sun-bleached petals, lies an object. A book, not ancient. Yours. The journal you began, on the first night. The one you thought you lost when the mirror chamber took you under. You kneel. Brush the sand off the cover. It opens easily. The pages aren't blank, they're full. Written in a script that isn't quite yours, but close. Every letter seems slightly older, more graceful, more deliberate. You flip through. The entries tell. A story. Not just of your journey, but of hers, Nymeria. The missing years, the long silences, the moments no one witnessed until now. You reach a page marked with a folded slip of cloth. When you unfold it, a single phrase is inked on the corner. In faint gold-brown script, "We do not leave memory behind, we walk it forward." You pause. Read it again, and feel it settle into you like the first deep breath after a long-held one. You rise, tucking the journal under your arm. Not to keep, to carry. Out of the corner of your eye, you see movement near the reflecting basin. The old man is there again, the one who once called himself the last who remembered before you. He doesn't speak as you approach, he just nods at the water. You kneel beside him. The surface ripples softly, not showing visions this time. Just light, just sky, just breath. He finally murmurs, "They're waking." You glance over your shoulder. The dreamers, the ones who once laid down beneath stone ceilings and whispered her name into sleep. They're waking. One by one, throughout the oasis, people are stirring in corners you hadn't noticed. Emerging from narrow halls, rising from shaded spots like the earth is letting go of them carefully one by one. Some are old, some look no older than you. One woman rises, looks around with a quiet expression, then kneels and presses her forehead to the sand, not in grief, in thanks. You ask the man, why now? His eyes crinkle, because now there's a story waiting for them. He nods at the book in your arms. You brought the breath. They remember how to inhale. You sit there beside him a while longer. No more visions. No more ghosts. Just the sound of water lapping the basin's edge, the rustle of leaves, and the gentle rhythm of feet returning to paths they once forgot. Before you leave, the man places something in your hand, a single seed, black, smooth, warm. Plant it where you choose, he says, but don't ask what it becomes. You nod, because you already understand. Not everything remembered must be explained. Some things are simply carried forward, rooted in silence, watered by breath. And just like that, he rises and walks away. You remain, hand curled around the seed, heart full of someone else's breath, ready to keep the story growing. You leave the basin slowly. The seed presses gently into your palm, not heavy but insistent. It doesn't hum like the flute or glow like the spiral stone. Its power is quieter, more patient. A promise, not a command. The kind that waits. The kind that trusts. You return to the pavilion where the girl still sits beneath the canopy, scroll in her lap. She's not writing anymore, just thinking. Her fingers trace the last line you wrote together, as if rereading can bring her closer to someone she never met. When she sees you, she smiles. But it's different now. Less wonder, more knowing. She rises and walks beside you as you cross the plaza toward the northern edge of the oasis, the place where stone gives way to wild scrub and broken dunes. This was once a border, where Nimira's walls ended and the unknown began. Now it feels like a beginning. You stop at a small rise in the earth where a single vine grows from a crack in the stone. Green, stubborn, out of place. Perfect. You kneel. The girl kneels beside you. You clear a shallow patch of soil with your hands, then press the seed gently into the earth. Cover it. Pat the top once. Not like a ritual, like a farewell. But before you rise, the girl reaches into her satchel and pulls out a strip of fabric. Faded, soft, embroidered with the same symbol from the old tower, the split circle, half wave, half flame. She ties it around a nearby stone, anchoring it above the place where the seed now sleeps. You both step back, no fanfare, no music, just wind and breath, and the sense that somewhere far below the queen has nodded. You walk in silence for a while. The caravan is gathering to depart. Not because they've taken what they came for, because they've given what they carried. Some leave behind written memories, some offer bits of song. One woman leaves her wedding ring beside a tree. They don't need to understand everything, they just need to leave something true. And then you see him, the man who once erased her. Name the chronicler. He stands alone at the edge of the oasis, looking at a wall half buried in sand. His face is weathered, his robes faded. In one hand he holds a stylus. You approach slowly. He senses you. I spent my life writing lies, he says, not turning. Now I write silence. You ask gently, is that better? He smiles faintly. It's honest. Then he kneels and begins to write on the wall. No flourish, no signature, just a single line carved carefully into stone. She gave us water when we gave her drought. He doesn't look back. He doesn't need to. That's not your moment. That's his. You return to the girl, who now stands beside the reflecting basin, hands cupped together. Inside them, water. She tilts her hands slowly, letting the water spill. Out of breath, offering a goodbye, you both walk to the entrance of the oasis, where the wind begins again, cooler now, softer. You look back one last time. The trees, the arches, the tower. And in the space where the seed now sleeps, you see a faint glow beneath the soil. It begins. The girl reaches for your hand. You take it, and together you cross the border. No longer a place of forgetting, but one of return, because what you carry now isn't history, it's inheritance, and Nimira, she no longer walks alone. Not in dreams, not in silence, not anymore. The dunes greet you like old friends, quiet, vast, watchful. Each step away from the oasis feels less like a departure and more like a continuation. Not an exit, but a breath taken after surfacing. The girl walks beside you, still barefoot, still quiet. The sand doesn't sting anymore, it welcomes. Warmer beneath your soles, as if the earth itself has begun remembering what softness feels like. Behind you, the oasis slowly disappears into heat, shimmer, and distance. Not lost, just waiting. As it always has, you travel in silence for a while. The wind brushes past your ear like a voice that almost says your name, but decides to let you keep it for now. Eventually, the dunes give way to stony ground, scattered scrub, traces of old roads so faint they look like guesses. And at the top of a small ridge you pause. There's a stone marker, unremarkable, half-buried, likely missed by every traveler who ever passed it. But someone left a mark on it, a single spiral. Etched faintly, you kneel, brush away the sand, and there beneath the symbol. Here begins the path of the ones who breathe for others. You don't smile, you don't need to. You place your hand on the stone, not to pray, not to plead, to affirm. Behind you, the girl speaks for the first time in hours. Will others find it? You turn to her, only if they listen. She nods. And you see it then. She's no longer just a child with questions. She's a listener, a keeper, a future memory in the making. You descend the ridge together, the caravan now just dots in the far distance. You'll rejoin them eventually. But not yet, because ahead of you lies something new. Not a ruin, not a temple, a campfire, small, fresh. Someone has been here recently. You kneel beside it. The coals are still warm. Buried beneath a flat stone, you find a bundle wrapped in faded cloth. Inside, a book, bound in leather worn smooth by handling. On the cover, no title, just a sun drawn in silver thread. You open it, it's filled with voices, not one, not Nimira's, not yours, many. Pages and pages of memory, penned by others who came before. Some speak of water, some of dreams, some of kings and mothers and gods who didn't listen. But one page makes you stop. It reads, "I carried her breath until someone stronger came. Now I sleep with peace in my lungs." No signature, just a date. So old it rewrites your understanding of how far this story stretches. You pass the book to the girl. She reads it slowly, her fingers tracing the words like they're braille for the soul. Then she looks up at you. "We're not the first," you nod, "and we won't be the last." She places the book into her satchel with a kind of care reserved for things that bleed. You leave the fire untouched. Let it remain as it was, warm and unfinished, for someone else, as you travel onward. Dusk begins to bloom at the horizon. The sun folding gently into itself, casting long shadows across the sand. And in those shadows, you begin to see the shape of something new. Not a story ending, not a myth completed. A trail, winding forward, lit by breath, held by silence, waiting to be written again. The trail doesn't announce itself. There's no signpost, no grand archway proclaiming this way to the next chapter. Just a series of soft indentations in the sand, barefoot, like yours, like hers. They lead east, where the sky deepens, into rose gold and lavender, and the sun bleeds gently into its own memory. You follow. The girl walks behind you now, her fingers grazing the leather cover of the book tucked into her satchel. She doesn't ask where you're going. She knows better. You're not following a path. You're following a reminder. By nightfall, you reach the base of a stone formation, tall, narrow, rising like a finger pointing back toward the stars. Locals call it the Watcher, or they used to. No one's lived here in centuries, but someone left a mark. You find it beneath the stone's western face, another spiral. Fresh, not carved. Drawn in ash. A message left not in permanence, but in gesture. You sit. The girl lights a small lantern and sets it between you. The flame flickers low, but steady. She opens the journal and begins to read aloud, not to you, not to herself, but to the night. Her voice is clear, stronger than before. It carries. She was not forgotten, she was interrupted. You look up at the stars. They've rearranged themselves, not in reality, of course, but in your understanding. The same constellations. Nimira once looked to now hold new meanings. That coiled serpent, not a warning, a vow. That broken circle near the horizon, not a ruin, a return. The wind changes. It brings with it a scent. Familiar, lotus and ash, spice and ink, memory and breath. The girl pauses mid-sentence. You both feel. At another presence, not hostile, not loud, just waiting. You rise and follow the wind into a narrow crevice between stones. The path narrows, the light fades. At the end, a hollow and in it a single bowl, clay, cracked, filled with water. You kneel beside it. It doesn't ripple. It reflects, but not you, not Nimira, not this place. It shows a new oasis. One not buried. One being built. Hands laying stone, children planting vines. A figure sketching symbols into freshly cut marble. A storyteller reading to a circle of listeners beside a fire. The image flickers, then stills. You understand. It's not prophecy, it's inheritance. Not what will happen. What can, if breath continues. If story is shared. You whisper a thank you to the bowl, though it is only a vessel. The gratitude is meant for her. When you return to the lantern, the girl is waiting. You nod once. She doesn't ask what you saw. She just stands and starts walking again, this time ahead of you, and you let her, because now she carries breath too, and just like that, the story folds forward again, one footstep, one word, one breath at a time. You walk behind her now, not out of fatigue, not out of deference, but because something in you understands, this is how stories pass on. Not by being carried, but by being released. The night deepens. You travel under stars that feel familiar, now as though each one whispered something to you during your journey and is waiting to hear what you did with it. The sand cools beneath your feet, each grain a memory, every step a sentence. You let it write you forward. Eventually, you arrive at a flat plane of stone ringed by half-buried pillars. In the center stands something strange, a doorframe. Only the frame. No walls, no hinges, no structure to anchor it. Just two columns of pale, pitted marble and a cracked lintel overhead. It faces nothing, or everything. The girl approaches it. First, she touches one side lightly, and when she does, a soft pulse moves through the stone. A breath, the same kind you felt in the mirror chamber, the same hum of remembrance that followed you from the basin, the tower, the journal. You stand. Beside her, the air within the doorframe shimmers faintly. A curtain of heat, a veil of memory, or maybe a question. She looks at you. Do we go through? You don't answer right away, because part of you is still holding Nimira's last touch, still echoing with the words, "This is not to keep, it's to pass on." You reach into your satchel, not for a relic, not for a book. For the spiral stone, it rests in your hand, warm and willing. You kneel and place it at the foot of the doorway. No drama. No light show, just truth. The girl kneels beside you. She reaches into her satchel and pulls out the book with the sun stitched in silver. She opens it to the middle and tears out a page. It feels sacrilegious for a moment, until you see what's on it. A name, Azael. She folds it, tucks it under the spiral stone, and the doorframe responds. A low vibration moves through the earth. Sand trembles, then stills, and the shimmer within the frame clears. What you see on the other side is not another world. Not a vision, just land, fresh, untouched, wild. It stretches wide and green and slightly uneven, like it hasn't yet decided what to become. And in the distance, just barely visible, a structure, small. Stone, a dome. You recognize it immediately. It's the first well. Not the first one you found, the first one ever built. Back when the Queen still carried her name, and no one had yet asked her to surrender it, the girl takes your hand, not because she's afraid, because she's ready, and together you step through. The moment you cross the threshold, something subtle unravels behind you. The shimmer returns, the key. Breath slows, the frame dims, not closing, resting, because it knows the story has moved forward, and so have you. You walk now on soft earth. It's springy beneath your steps, littered with tufts of new grass and unfamiliar flowers. There's a scent here you've never known before. Hope. Real hope. Not the kind whispered at statues or buried beneath curses. Hope that grows. You stop. Beside a patch of soft soil, the girl kneels. Together you begin digging, and from your satchel you remove the second seed. You forgot you had it. Or maybe you didn't. You place it into the earth, press it down gently, and for the first time you don't wonder what it will become. You already know. A story tree, one that speaks in silence, listens in sleep, and bears fruit made of memory. You rise, the wind carries a sound to your ears, not from behind, from ahead. Laughter. Dozens of voices, maybe more. It sounds like celebration. It sounds like arrival. The girl looks at you with shining eyes. You nod once, and together, barefoot and whole, you walk toward the sound, toward the first well, toward the next page, toward the rest of the breath. The laughter draws you like gravity, not loud, just persistent. Soft ripples of joy spilling through the air, like someone shook a memory loose and it bloomed instead of breaking. You crest a small ridge, the grass warm and springy beneath your feet, and see it, the first well round, low to the ground. Low, too. Edged with smooth, pale stones polished by 1,000 hands across 1,000 years. It's not grand, not glowing, no smoke, no magic, just water. Still, clear, real. Around it a small gathering, no more than 20 people, different ages, different skin, different languages rising and falling like overlapping lullabies. Some sit, some hum. One person sings something low and old and steady, and others tap their fingers to it without realizing. And in the center, facing the well with her back to you, is a woman. You stop walking, so does the girl. Because even from here, even without seeing her face, you'd know that posture anywhere, that breath, that presence. It's her, Namira. Not as a vision, not as a ghost, not retelling, not remembering, arrived. She wears no crown, she holds no scepter, just a scarf around her shoulders embroidered with stars, 1 foot bare. A single ring on her left hand made of bone, not gold. She turns, sees you, and she smiles. Not like a queen, not like a goddess, like someone who has waited a very long time for a story to circle back. The others at the well don't react to her like royalty. They smile too, or keep humming, or simply nod in acknowledgement, because here she's not a legend, she's part of the chorus. You and the girl approach slowly. When you reach her, she doesn't say anything. She just takes both your hands and brings your foreheads gently together, hers against yours, hers against the girl's. A gesture older than any written language. When she steps back, her eyes shine. I left the breath in the basin, she says, but it was never meant to stay. There, you nod. It's growing now. She turns to the girl. And you? What have you brought? The girl hesitates for only a heartbeat, then pulls the book from her satchel. She opens it. Pages now filled with dozens of hands. Your writing. Hers. The chroniclers. The dreamers. The caravan. The silent Namira flips through slowly. She pauses at the page with her name, her real name, carved deep. No longer whispered. She presses her fingers to the ink, and you hear it. Not a voice, a breath. Shared between all of you, and in that breath, joy. No fanfare, no salvation. Just the kind of joy that rebuilds, that remembers kindly. Later, as the stars return and the fire is lit beside the well, you all sit together. Stories are told, real ones, flawed ones. Laughter mixes with silence and no one forces the ending, because there isn't one. Not yet. Someone hands you a bowl of stew. The girl falls asleep against your shoulder. Nemira hums under her breath, a tune no one knows but everyone feels, and you look up at the sky and realize you're not carrying her story anymore, you're living inside it, and that is how legacies breathe. The fire burns low. Embers crackle slow and steady, as if reluctant to let the night end. Around you, people begin to drift into sleep, some curled under blankets, some slumped against one another, a few simply reclining with their eyes closed, breathing in rhythm with the earth. The girl beside you stirs slightly, her head nestled against your arm, still sleeping, but deeper now. Dreaming, maybe, or listening to a story older than even Nemira's. Across the circle, Nemira sits with her back to the flames. Her eyes reflect the glow, but her face is turned upward, toward the stars, toward silence, toward something that doesn't need a name anymore. You want to speak, you don't, because some stories, when told too soon, unravel instead of unfold. So you wait. And the silence offers something better, a memory you don't own. It slides into your mind like a tide returning to shore. You're not here. You're then. You see Nemira walking through the oasis in its earliest bloom. No palace, no pillars, just mud brick and laughter. A child tugs her hand. She kneels to listen. No guards, no throne, only a woman with calloused hands who knows how to dig wells and bury pain in the same movement. Then, a storm. You don't. See it, you feel it. A surge of wind, fire, betrayal, people shouting, maps burned, scrolls ripped apart in a hall lit only by torchlight. Someone tries to erase her, not kill her, erase her, and she lets them, not out of fear, out of choice. Because sometimes the only way to protect a legacy is to place it where no one looks. Silence. The vision fades. You're back by the fire. The girl sighs in her sleep, the kind of sigh that carries lifetimes. Nemira is still watching the sky. You rise and walk toward her. She doesn't look at you, but she speaks. You felt it, didn't you? You nod quietly, she continues. They thought removing my name would bury the truth, but truth isn't stored in names. She turns to you now. It's stored in people, in breath, in those who stay when the story stops being glorious. You sit beside her. She places something in your hand. It's not a relic, it's not a key, it's a shell small weathered, a perfect spiral. This was given to me, she says, when I stopped being remembered. It's yours now, not to keep, to echo. You turn the shell over in your palm. It hums faintly, not with magic, with memory. She smiles. When you place it to your ear, you won't hear the sea. You'll hear us. She stands. The firelight frames her silhouette, not as a monument, as a beginning. You watch her walk toward the dark, where the dunes begin again. She doesn't disappear. She just fades into story, into breath, into everything still waiting to be told. You return to the fire. The girl stirs as you settle beside her. She opens her eyes, sleep-heavy but knowing. She doesn't ask where you went, she just says, "It's still growing, isn't it?" You nod. It always will. And together, you lean back, watching the embers, cradling the shell, listening to a story that no longer needs to be remembered because now at last it lives. Morning slips into the world like a secret passed hand to hand. No trumpets, no rooster's cry, just the soft blue of the sky easing over the horizon and the hush of warm wind threading through blades of new grass. Around the well, the camp. Wakes slowly, stretches, breathes, yawns in the language of beginnings. You sit beside the fire's remains, now only ash and memory. The girl hums as she folds her blanket, and someone offers you a cup of something warm and spiced, bitter at first sip, then strangely sweet. A drink meant for those who carry things too long. You drink. It helps. Across the circle, a new face appears. A boy, maybe 12, dressed in patched linen and thick-soled sandals. His cheeks are dusty, his eyes wide. He stares at you for a long time before asking, "Are you the one who found her name?" You glance at the girl who grins into her cup. Then you look back at the boy. "No," you say gently. "I just gave it back." He seems to consider this seriously, then nods once, and offers you something small wrapped in cloth. You open it to find a handful of dried petals and a pebble shaped like a drop of water. No explanation. None needed. You tuck it away. Later, as the sun climbs, the group gathers at the well. No one says why. They just do, as if pulled there by something older than language. You find your place among them, near the girl, near the boy, near others who arrived long before you ever knew the Queen's name. Someone begins to sing, softly, a melody without words, and then someone else hums with it, and then another, and then... It's not a song anymore, it's a breath shared by dozens. You don't lead it, you don't follow it, you are it. When the sound fades, you hear the splash of a ladle dipping into the well. Water passed from hand to hand. Each person drinks, you do too. The taste is cool, quiet, unforgettable, the kind of water that once saved an oasis, that once whispered to the bones of a forgotten queen. Keep going. When the cup comes back to you a second time, you don't drink. You pour it gently into the earth, where the seed was planted, where story still roots. Beside you, the girl places a single finger to the ground and draws a spiral. Not the symbol, not the mark, just the motion. You understand. Because remembering her was never about monuments. It was always about movement. Someone asks, "Where do we go now?" And you realize it's not a question of place, it's a question of breath, of who carries what next. You rise, not because you're done, because it's time, and behind you others rise too, not to follow, to walk beside. The girl slips the book back into her satchel. The boy ties the cloth bundle around his wrist, and together under a sky that remembers every name, every silence, every breath, you walk on. No fanfare, no farewell, just the rhythm of continuation. Because the well isn't behind you, it walks within you now, and Namira, she no longer needs to be found, she is carried. The road stretches out before you. If it can be called a road at all, it's not marked. There are no signs, no worn grooves from caravans, no scattered stones to suggest anyone has ever passed this way. And yet, you know exactly where you're going, because it isn't a direction, it's a feeling. The girl walks at your side, quiet and steady, the book pressed flat against her back beneath the straps of her satchel. The boy skips ahead, chasing shadows cast by clouds. He doesn't know where he's headed, but he trusts the wind. And you? You're walking inside a story that's still writing itself. After a while, the land begins to shift. Sand gives way to hard clay. Clay to gravel, gravel to scattered tufts of green. You pass clusters of thorny bushes, some flowering, some not, and then you see it, half sunken in the earth, a marker stone, another spiral, yes, but this one is flanked by 2 lines of script. We gave our names to the silence, now the silence gives them back. You stop, not because you're unsure, but because the world has paused just for a moment to let you feel this. The girl kneels beside the stone and adds a line in the margin, just beneath the spiral. Nimira breathes here, no flourish, just truth. The boy whistles, a signal. You look up to see him standing ahead near what looks like the entrance to a ruin. Small, barely visible from the road. Overgrown with vines and brush, half swallowed by the earth, but it's not dead. You can feel it. Something sleeps there. You approach. It's not a palace, not even a house. Just 3 crumbling walls and a collapsed roof. But someone once lit fires here. Someone once sheltered inside from the storm. Someone once waited. The girl pushes aside the hanging vines and steps in first. Inside, the light is golden, and on the back wall, drawn in charcoal, is a map. Not of a kingdom, not of roads or cities, a map of voices, tiny symbols radiating outward, in circles, like ripples from a dropped pebble. Each one bears a name, some scratched deep, others added recently, and in the center, the first breath returned. You run your fingers along the circle and they tingle. These are the ones who remembered, the ones who listened, the ones who heard her name even when it wasn't spoken, and beside the center, scribbled more recently, a name you recognize. Yours. You. Don't ask how it got there. You know who wrote it. She's probably watching now, somewhere just outside the moment, proud and silent. The girl reaches into a satchel and adds her own name. Then the boy, his handwriting messy but determined. You. Sit for a long time inside that ruin. And slowly others arrive, not many, not loud, just one by one. People carrying stories. Some bear pages, others carry music. One woman brings a folded scrap of silk. A man brings a tooth from a lion, wrapped in thread. No one speaks of what they bring. They just add, the ruin doesn't grow taller. It grows wider. Not in space, but in meaning. This is no longer a ruin. It is a registry, a monument made of silence, stories, and the quiet act of saying, I remember. Night falls again. Another fire is lit, and beside it someone begins reading aloud from the book. Not for drama, not for performance, for preservation. Because every time the story is spoken, it breathes again, and as the flame flickers across the spiral on the wall and the growing circle of names around it, you close your eyes not to sleep, to listen, because tonight the breath lives in someone else's voice, and that's exactly how it should be.